Welcome to the Synergy Podcast, the space where we redefine how we move, heal, and experience our bodies. My name is Arianna Montanari, a yoga teacher, soap maker, and beekeeper, and really advocate for a pain-free life driven by pleasure. Here, we break free from the unspoken rules that tell us how we should look, how we should move and feel. And through intuitive movement, self-care, and deeper connection with nature, we explore what it truly means to live without tension, pain, or limitations. So whether you're a yogi, a seeker, or simply curious about stepping into a more liberated way of living, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Synergy Podcast. My name is Arianna Montanari and I'm your host. Today, our beautiful guest is Shani Persson. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Thank you for jumping in this morning on a call. For all our listeners, Shani is let's call her a creation catalyst, an intuitive guide and facilitator of attunement and authentic expression. We will dive deeper into what all of this mean, but she has been working for over 2 decades with self-development practices and more than 10 years with building contexts, knowledge for other people to thrive and be creative at work. She really brings together an eclectic mix of tools, and I have experienced this. She's just amazing. And she always have like a very innovative perspective on human learning, evolution, well-being, healing, and creativity. And she put all of these tools out of her hat and just create something that you wonder, how did she do this? And all of this in this very playful environment. Doesn't have to be so serious. She has been working in corporate, so she brings, not, that doesn't have to be so serious. Let's be playful. She's a certified breathwork healing practitioner, and she invites a playful, deep, warm, and present atmosphere, leaving us open really to feel, to heal, and to explore our own body. Shani, welcome.
Yes, thank you. What an honor.
So I invited you to the podcast a little bit last minute. Let's say this. And so I'm very grateful that you could join us today, because yesterday I had one of my yoga classes at the studio here in Stockholm. And after class, one student stayed a little bit longer and asked me about breath work. She asked me, do you do breathwork classes? And this is a very specific question, but also not so specific. And I asked a little bit further what she meant. And then I gave my explanation. But so then we can talk about this later. I got to think about you. And I thought that we need to share more information, more knowledge about this breathwork bubble, breathwork hype, if you want, that is happening in, say, the spiritual world and the yoga world. And this is why I invited you today, so that you can share with us what you know, your experience, your journey. And maybe we can start with that. What was your journey? How did you end up being a certified breathwork healing practitioner?
How?
How?
I hardly know that myself, but yet here I am.
Well, this is a good reflection moment for you.
Yes, I will jump in and take it. I think I was always interested in people's potential and our abilities as humans. And I've always been a person who creates a lot. And my long stint in corporate, one thing that I kept observing was how much we relate just to people kind of from the neck up. We only relate to their mind, to their intellectual capability. And yet I was sitting in rooms and I was seeing how much it impacts people that somebody is present or not present. Or not even just the wordless things, also those things that we do that are beyond a skill set or a box that we can tick. And so I think that grew for me over a long period of time, the sense that there was a big disconnect, and also a big failure in actually kind of bringing our full selves. I don't really like that term, but like the wholeness of us into different contexts. And I was also definitely part of hustle and a person who hustled and worked hard and pushed through. And it also had consequences on my health and my relationship to myself that I didn't desire. And I'm not entirely sure like how I treaded the path to finally arrive at breathwork, but I started just experiencing different tools that led me to connect more somatically to my body and to tap in to understand kind of, oh wow, there's more to me than my brain cells churning. And I started looking around and I found one of my teachers, Michelle Baker, and I went for a first group here in Malmö, and there wasn't a lot at the time. And my first try, I didn't like it. I got really tense, my hands got really crampy, my jaws got really crampy. I felt emotional, wasn't sure how to work with that experience at all. And yet it opened some kind of door for me to be curious because I really loved the way she held space. And so I kept just following that curiosity. And at some point she said, I'm doing this training, and as it is in my life, certain decisions, I make them just on pure intuition and with zero friction. And so I joined the training having no idea what I wanted to do with it.
Just for yourself.
I thought either I will discover I want to do something with it, or it will be a moment for me to deepen my own practice. Either which way, I don't have any expectations. And I came out of that first weekend feeling like my soul had made a transfusion almost, like come out and back in again. It was, I remember taking the train back to Malmö where I live from Stockholm, and I didn't think a single thought the whole way, which is very rare for me at that point. And and from there I just kept practicing, kept being curious, kept committing to it as my own practice, but also in giving and holding space in that way. And it just expanded from there.
Wow. I love how you said that you don't really know exactly how you got there, but you got there. It's like, it's really very much about this intuition, just following. So it's not the brain and making the decision, it's your gut brain, right? It's more this, it's a yes, I'm gonna go for it. Let's see where it takes me.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you after the first time that you thought, I didn't quite like it? Still was something within you that was, would you like to kind of expand on that? Let's put words on
Put some
that.
words. Yeah. I think I've always been a person who appreciates words. And I've always relied a lot on my capacity to frame and put words to what I'm experiencing within myself. This is something I've always been really good at. And I think with that habit and that comfort comes this sensation of being used to a certain type of precision.
Okay.
A certain type of like clarity, because clarity in your body and clarity verbal clarity, they're not the same thing at all.
Totally.
And I think to that point, that's what made me curious, because it did shift something in me. And it did connect me to things that were beyond the verbal. And it did connect me to this remembrance that when I wasn't piled underneath this expectation to be quick and snappy and wordy, I'm a very tactile person. I'm a very analog person. I love using all of my senses. And I do that. I do it in the things that I create. I'm always with pen and paper, always lighting candles and scents. I love to involve all my senses. And I think it opened the door for me also to remember that this is actually how I naturally function and relate to the world. And as we know, when we open up a door, whether it's to something new or to a remembrance of something, it's not super comfortable in that moment. It's kind of, okay, and now I have to do something with this. And so it took me a moment of digestion.
It's so funny that you put words on this specific pattern because I'm the complete opposite. So I am not so good at putting words on what I'm going through because I'm very much of just moving through it. I'll just do it. And I often feel so inadequate because I'm like, no, but I should be able to describe this a little bit better. But it's like, I don't know. What shall I say? How should I say this? So interesting how we just work and function in such a different way. Because you said I'm very used to, the structure, the being sharp and being precise. And I'm like, woo! I'm on the other, I'm on the other end of the scale. So it's always like there's always space for I don't want to use the word improvement, but just exploring, really, right? You felt this curiosity to explore the bodily, the what else is there inside me that I cannot quite describe with words yet,
or that I don't need to describe with words.
Totally.
Because I think it's also that. I think once I really gave myself to it, one of the things that I love about this practice is it doesn't ask from me to define anything. It invites me to trust my sensation of something moving. And now it feels better, so it is. And maybe I don't need to understand why and what. Maybe that's not my job. My job is to relate to this whole body, my mind included, but all of it. And also have permission to not understand, to not intellectualize, to not even verbalize, just relate to my sensations.
And that makes me think, I think that we want to verbalize and put words on something, especially when we not necessarily just do it for somebody else, but when we always go like refer to an outer source. But when you start doing things for yourself, the need to utterly communicate with words is, unless you journal for yourself, but then the inner dimension is more important. And it's like you say, then I don't need to necessarily describe it or understand it. You just know that it's there.
Yeah.
And you feel it.
And I kind of think I love languages. I'm fascinated by languages and words in general. And I also feel like movement and breath, they're languages too.
Absolutely.
Entirely.
100%.
For a while, one thing that I got really stuck on was this idea that the breath is one of the only ways in which we can tell our body different things. You can't will your heart to beat slower, but you can breathe your heart into a slower rate or a faster rate. And I just found that fascinating. I think in a way it just became another language for me to relate to the whole of a human. which in the end is what keeps me coming back to it too.
So let's backtrack a little bit. And if you could give your own description, definition of breathwork for those who are listening and they probably heard of the word breathwork, but they don't really know what it is really because they have never tried.
I mean, there are lots of different breathworks, right? So
Yes,
I'll speak from my point of knowledge, but at the very base, the idea is that we utilize a set pattern of breath to induce certain states in ourselves. And different types of breathworks can produce different types of impact. So you do yoga, in breath of fire, for example, or different pranayama techniques. There are ways to amp up your energy. There are ways to calm you down. There are ways to balance you in different ways. And breathwork for me encompasses all of it. And then of course, whatever paths you choose, there are different approaches to it. Some are more physiological, some are more spiritual. In the end, I think both, I was taught by somebody, I can't remember the exact definition, but spirare, which is like a word for breath, and prana are both also related to the spirits. And letting spirit, or also practices in different ways of creating connection to spirit or God, or to our own spirit. We all get to choose how we view this, right?
You know that actually respirare means to breathe.
Breathe.
In Italian. Spirare means to die. It's like the literal, like when you die and the soul just leaves your body.
Yeah. I think somebody told me it was in Latin.
Yeah, of course.
So in Latin, but I love that. I think there's that also the balancing of those elements, right? Of creating space within ourselves for the things that get to die and the things that get to take up space.
100%. Because yesterday, this student who asked me about breath work, she said that she was at a festival and she went to a breathwork session where they were breathing very fast, and then she started feeling anxiety. Okay, so as I understood it in what she told me, her understanding of that experience, that, by the way, she interrupted after 15 minutes because she felt that it was not a safe space for her to stay. She felt that if that experience was bringing up anxiety, that it means that there is anxiety in her that she needs to release, because that is something that is coming up. And I explained that is one key of reading it. Like you said, you can take this as a spiritual practice or as a physiological practice. In my training, I am more prone to see it in the physiological, because then you also go, of course, to the spiritual. They're very connected, but it helps to understand that as I see it, and then you can tell me what you see it through your lens. What was happening is that since she was breathing a lot, then the body goes into this fight or flight state. There is less oxygen going to the brain. The blood is drawn from your hands, from your feet, like you said at the beginning. The jaw clenches. The breath gets up in the chest, and it maybe gets difficult to breathe, and you are triggering a stress response in the body that you can associate to anxiety. So I explained this to her, and also said that often in our modern society, due to lifestyle, due to posture, sedentary, we sit a lot, we don't move enough, then we often, on the scale, we tend to breathe more than usual. We tend to have a very surface breathing up in the chest, not using so much our deeper, more central, so abdominal muscles to breathe. And so before we go and breathe more, we should reestablish the natural breathing, the softer, slower breathing, deeper breathing. And deep breathing, it's like if you see videos, I don't know, on Instagram of people breathing deep, but it's like up here in the chest. But can you breathe deep down towards your hips, towards the pelvic floor? So I explained this to her and said that during what I teach, so yoga synergy and the 5-dimensional flow, like breathwork or pranayama, it is an integrated part of the practice because we are breathing in different ways through the practice, having movements, making the breathing happening for us. But we really want to soften up the abdomen and start breathing there. And then from there, we can build up. So this is the explanation that I gave to her, but I can see why there is so much confusion because you think, oh, maybe this is something. So, and you could see it as an emotional release of some type. Keep in mind the physiology of it. So I would like to know your take on this.
I mean, I facilitate breathwork a lot from a spiritual standpoint, so I love that we're having this conversation.
Yes,
and
yes.
I equally give importance to the physiological in that sense. But there are so many doors I could enter into this.
Go ahead.
Let's see where I'm starting. I think first of all, one of the biggest worries I get from people who come in is similar experience to what your client had. I went to this thing, I was really pushed for some kind of release. It was very aggressive or a lot. And that is amazing for some people. I will never say one thing is good, one thing is bad. It's great. It's all, and it's all contextual. From the more energetic standpoint, yes, breathing puts us into touch with our energy, makes us aware of where it's flowing, where it's stagnant in different ways, can definitely trigger us to have all kinds of emotions. And as you say, it also does trigger a type of stress response, which can be not pleasant. However, I think there's a big responsibility as somebody who holds that space and who guides that space to empower the person breathing to make decisions about how much they're capable of holding and how much they're capable of leaning into the support of the guidance that they receive. Because sometimes we come into emotions and we're not entirely ready. We're a little bit overwhelmed, and we don't want people to get overwhelmed, but we do want people to expand their emotional range, to expand their ability to hold different types of emotions. And it's two very different things to feel lost to your emotions and feel held as you're feeling something profoundly. Whether that is anxiety or sadness or exorbitant joy, doesn't matter.
So you're saying that you get into that space where you take the time and space to feel, and you feel safe in feeling whatever is coming up and not feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, this is too much, or I don't want to feel this, I want to hide, I want to move on.
Yeah, or even like allowing that response. Actually, this feels hard and I feel like hiding. Okay, do you have another breath in that sensation? Can you allow yourself to stay with that, or is it too much? One of the things I love about the breath practice, obviously I chose to facilitate this one because it resonates with how I see things, is also that it allows people to slow down and back off. And it's one of the biggest reminders I give people. You're the one breathing.
Yeah.
Is your breath, is your muscles, is your body. You always have a choice. If it feels like too much, slow down. Go slowly.
Yeah.
If it feels like too much, you can use the breath to soothe yourself too. And on the other side of it, I think, is that responsibility of the person holding the space to be very aware that when you induce stress, which it is a strain on the body when you're breathing at a pattern that you're not used to, however that pattern looks. If you do it in a way that is empowering to the person, they can also feel like they're able to stretch their capability through this rather than contract from it. And you have to do it to figure it out in your own body. And set it up in ways there is trust too. I think in the breath practice that I facilitate, it's from David Elliott, and it's a breath pattern that's through your mouth and followed by a really deep rest. So it's more like an active meditation. But it has no hyperventilation, it has no breath holds. And I know people like different things, so I've tried a number of different other techniques. I find this one as a regular practice, as a way to care for my body and my soul, works for me. Maybe other things work for other people. But for me, with this practice is that softness and that assumption that we don't need to push. You don't need to push for a release. Like when your body is ready and expansive enough
and safe,
it will go there. You will feel what you need to feel. There's nowhere to push. And I mean, I practice very regularly, and there are periods where I am really in my head. There are periods where I feel like zoned out in outer space while I'm meditating. And then there are periods where I do it regularly, and every time I'm crying and having all, because that's our nature, right? We ebb and flow and we work through different things and we're peeling the layers, and it's not meant to be the same all the time. It's just a way to be speaking to ourselves. But to your point, like, hey, I'm really glad your client decided to say stop and paid attention to her body. I think that's something to congratulate.
So much. But she felt that this doesn't feel safe, and so she left. Yeah, I told her. And what your point is go back to your natural intelligence. And remember, like you say, that you are breathing, you are the one in charge. And practice that in the breathing, in the movement, in the yoga practice, and then apply it also in the rest of your life.
I want to take a moment to talk about something truly special and close to the heart. Miele Strega, my own line of natural handmade body products. And as you know, I am passionate about moving with ease and feeling good in our bodies, and that extends to what we put on our skin. Each batch of Miele Strega products is crafted with love, for real, by me, using ingredients from my very own beehives and my darling bees, combined with the pure botanicals. Whether it's a soothing, luxury whipped body butter, a nourishing lip balm, or a gentle soap, everything is designed to support your body's natural rhythm, just like the practices we explore here. If you're looking for skincare that's pure, it's intentional and deeply connected and aligned to nature, check it out at mielestrega.com. And because you're a listener, I've got a special gift for you. Use the code SYNERGY10, spelled with Y and Y, for 10% off your first order. Now, back to our conversation.
And as you're talking, I'm just reminded also, I worked with a coach for a long time, and sometimes when I would get really emotional, she would always tell me, stay with this. It's the last time you're going to feel it. And it always moved me a lot. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe this is the last time I'm going to feel this in this way. And I think the same is true in a breathwork practice. If you can, if you feel held in it, and sometimes we hold ourselves, and for other things we need somebody else to hold us. And that's true also for me. There are places I don't go unless I'm facilitated by somebody else. And there are things I do on my own. And we also get to explore that balance for us. We're collective beings. We need other people. It's really important to also use our discernment in terms of who holds the space for us and what type of practice it is. It doesn't mean it's always going to feel perfect and always going to feel right, but if we're feeling safe, also being in contact with that. I had this past weekend, I had my weekend of training, and you pair up with another facilitator and you facilitate a session each for each other. And again, I do this, and yet I was reminded, I thought, wow, this is why I've fallen off my practice a little, because I needed somebody to hold space for me. And my body naturally knew, like, you can't, you're not ready to go there on your own. And so I kind of was a bit standoffish about it. And then I had 2 days in a row of big sessions. And now I'm feeling, okay, now I'm ready to come back. So I also think, I mean, there are tons of different dimensions to be mindful of. And in the end, some people will love the breath holds and the hyperventilation, and it will do wonders for them. That's fantastic. Personally, I feel like it puts too much strain for me. I will never push that on somebody else or say that there's a wrong or right. It's just my choice.
Yeah. Whatever, I think that's the beauty of all these practices, that they work for some and do not work for others. And the important bit here is to really know, like you say, the variety of it, that it is not just breathing too much and then holding breath. By the way, like for those attending, it's like super important when breathing too much, then balancing with holding breath, so that you kind of bring the body back to that center. And my impression is that you work more in the center with more gentle oscillations, right? More gentle waving and moving and exploring rather than going to the extremes.
Definitely. It's still a pattern. So in itself, you know, there's still a structure to it.
Yeah.
And the speed can vary, but it isn't, no, it doesn't search out. And it also, while it does create movement, it's always balanced with rest and integration after. And that usually is, wow. So many times I feel like I'm like inside the bed or wherever I'm lying. I'm like, it's such a deep rest. That's usually where people zone out completely. A couple of years ago, I facilitated for somebody. She said, "Oh, there were flowers growing on me."
My goodness.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, good. And some people fall asleep, and that's also fine. Then it's probably what they need.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that our mind, I mean, there is so much to our body that we're not fully aware of. And that to me is such I think this is why we do what we do, right? Like, we don't need any external, I don't know, aids, because we can just do so much through breathing, through a movement, with just our brain, our breath.
Yes.
Exploring, right?
This is also, I think, a reason why I really love the breath also as an idea. I feel like it's so available. And I like that. I like that you can take it. I gave a session to a friend recently, and she wrote me a while later and said, "I've just been continuing to breathe." Like, amazing. Perfect. How are you feeling? Great. Good. Like, that's amazing. You don't need anything fancy, anything extra. Put on 2 songs that you like, or lie in silence, or whatever works for you. But I love, as you say, it's the same as movement. it's there. You have a body, use it.
Yeah.
And I think actually you're also circling kind of what is my core curiosity is that like there's so much, we have so much. And how do we get to like be connected to it? Not from
Sometimes
this place of like, yeah.
how do you start seeing something that you were not aware of before?
Yeah. Yeah, and
I
how do you
cut you
stay
off. Go
curious?
on.
No, I was just gonna say, I
Totally.
think, how do you stay curious about what's there?
Mm.
Or like what's beyond your own assumptions about yourself? I think it's that too. I love how the things that connect us to our body also they help me have new experiences of myself in ways that you don't get there by thinking.
No.
You don't. You can't. You have to, this, everything has to be combined. This weekend in training, I had 2 days, each day long breath sessions. And I haven't, when I practice myself, I usually do somewhat shorter sessions. I definitely haven't had back to back that long sessions in a while. And I found myself being like a little bit worried. I'm like, wow, how's that going to be? And I came out of it in such awe of my own body because it really regulated what I was able to take. So the first day I had a session that went really deep and was really emotional, and there was a lot that came up and moved through. And the second day was a really nurturing and expansive session. And I had this moment of such self-tenderness where I felt like this type of self-love that when your mind is engaged, you almost never get there because there is always some story that is a little bit critical.
Yeah.
But I had this moment of a few minutes while I was breathing where I saw myself and I was so proud and I was so tender and I was like, wow, way to go, right? And that's one of the reasons why I also love it, because all these emotions, they give me points of reference to be curious about in life. So when I come out of there, I might go, oh, wow, actually, this expansive feeling, I also feel it when I'm doing this or when I'm meeting this person. And maybe I want to do more of that. But this constricted feeling, I also feel it when I'm doing this thing or that thing. And how do I want to interact with that? Or maybe I want to interact less with that. And I love that it just gives me these points of reference to things I get to inquire more about or observe more and just move with.
I think you said that this piece about curiosity, how do we stay curious? And while you were saying it, I realized that it is such a vital piece of how we function, because especially in adulthood, it is so easy to lose that curiosity, right? You stay on those tracks, on those habits, and you kind of don't put aside some time for this curiosity, for learning new things, for feeling almost uncomfortable, unease, putting yourself in new situations, and not necessarily just outer, but within yourself. And that is really connected to being connected to your body.
Yes.
Feeling your body and being able to take a moment, like you describe, and being just open to whatever is present with you now, and being able to recognize it. Without the curiosity, you never really get there. It's like
No.
this curiosity, time, and connection, and that brings so much grounding.
It does. And it immediately makes me think some of my clients that I've worked with, sometimes people will come into a space with me and they'll say, I know what my values are. And I'll say, great. How do you know that a value is right for you? That I don't know. I said, yeah, that's That's how far into it you want to get, because things will change.
Mm.
You will change. You will change your priorities. You will throughout life. And yes, it's important to know that this is what feels important right now, but even more so is knowing how I know that this is the right thing. How I know that health is one of my core values, or family, or whatever else that you choose to put there. How do you know that that is right? And to your point, that then is that curiosity. Personally, I have a very fluid relationship to identity because I hate labels. I just have always hated them. And I think really what started establishing that for me was having my first child, which is almost 11 years ago. And I mean, you will know this with children also. You kind of see them unfold all the time as they grow. Every time there's this new thing that they're able to do, a new thing that they're able to express. And I thought, wow, if there's one thing I want to commit to in my relationship to them, is to give them the benefit of not boxing them in with my assumptions of who they are.
Oh, I get goosebumps. Yes.
And you know, help be curious. Now, I'm human, so I'm definitely not perfect. And this is still the intention, but I think it also took me a few years to actually start directing that curiosity to myself. As while I'm not a 2 and 3 week old baby that unfolds at a very rapid pace, I'm still a human, which inevitably I change. We all do. And I think for me, it's just the choice here isn't if we change, we all change. The choice is if that change evolves us or if that change is just some kind of random. And so I choose to be curious, also with the intention of knowing, but also with the intention of evolving in directions that feel meaningful to me. And it's hard. Sometimes you look yourself in the mirror and you go, holy, I did not want to see this today.
Yep, I know what you mean. You know, while you're saying this, it brings me back to Sunday when I had an interesting conversation with experienced yogi, I would say, who has practiced hatha yoga for, I don't know, I think many years. And she told me how her membership with the studio expired. And then life happened and she took a little break. So for 3 to 4 weeks, she did not practice. And she started realizing that her body was not in pain anymore, that her body was starting to feel better. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so as I was listening to her, she was saying how she did not expect that. Although she see the connection between not practicing and actually feeling better. But there was still a part of her saying, no, first I'm going to go to a doctor and see what's going on. But also, I really don't want to give up that practice because I really like it, because I like the structure. I like the sharpness, the perfection, and so I asked, but what happens if you let go a little bit of that? So you are faced with a situation, with a practice that maybe is not suitable for your body anymore. And so since she was maybe not so ready to think about, oh, okay, I'm going to do something else. And I said, well, maybe you can stay in the same practice, but notice more about yourself. See if you can do movements a little bit softer. So that's a complete straight line that in my mind is always that, perfection. What happens if you make it a little bit softer, a little bit rounder, and make sure that although you stay in the same classes with the same teachers, you notice more about yourself and stay pain-free. So it's like, what happened? How do you deal with change when a change happens?
Yeah.
right? Do you allow it? Do you see it? And can you do, or are you willing to embrace it?
Mm,
Kind of have a dance with it.
I love that. And what I hear when you say that is also that we get to be more playful with how we do things. Because I think we sometimes get a little bit locked in do it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not the option. I remember for a while I was thinking more of how I eat and things, and there was somebody who said, you know, maybe you don't have to go like 100% sugar free. Just next time you buy an ice cream, buy one scoop instead of two.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your softer option and smarter option. That doesn't, I think there's a lot in that, as you say. We soften or reduce. Sometimes it is true that things are not for us and we need to change, and maybe we get to have our transition with that too. Sometimes
That's
it's
part of the
true.
process.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just true that we can adjust the way that we do it.
Mm.
And yeah, I think we also, this world doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. So there's a right way of doing things.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a one way of doing things. And once you figure out your formula, you better stick to it. I think a thought that I love is also, is a practice holding you, or
Yeah.
are you latching onto it? And like, because any practice that holds you, at least in my book, is a practice that enhances me, that makes me more receptive, that makes me more open, that also makes me able to observe my own cycles and abilities in every moment. Because also, it doesn't mean I'm like constantly accessible and constantly outward going or whatever. It just means I am able to sense myself as things change, and I am able to respond to it in a way that makes me feel like I'm representing myself in a good way. And yeah, I think there's something about that that's more important to me than doing the exact same thing, because then there are also practices that we hold onto because we think they give us control, or, you know,
Control equals safety.
and they keep us safe, but they're not necessarily enhancing us. They're just giving us this illusion. And
Yeah.
it can be a very fine line.
Absolutely. What you're saying, that there is, well, in our society, it's more towards there is just one way of doing, there is just one right thing, one right way to do whatever you're doing. And I think this brings us back to our initial breathwork question. Breathwork, it can be many things. It can be experienced in many different nuances. And it is as if in everything, but I think that we live in this a black or white world, and no, world is in all the colors. And so let's inform that this is one way of doing things. It's not the right way, it's just the one way that works for some. And so to start wrapping this conversation up, if somebody was curious about breath work, what would be a few tips to start with on like safe grounds?
Yeah, good question.
Mm.
I personally, this is from my very personal perspective.
Yes, that's what we want to hear.
I always search out teachers that resonate with me more than the practice itself, actually, because if you feel resonance with a person who holds space, then you're also more likely to feel safely held. Or if you feel resonance to a practice in itself or description of it, yeah. But I think it's a little bit like anything you start with. You get to try.
Mm.
Something I say to people when they come for the first time is to remember it's the first time. And the first time we generally are a little bit, I don't want to say holding back, but we're like paying attention to our reactions.
Yes.
We're gathering our bearings and our boundaries. And so usually when you come a second time or a third, that's when you really start falling into also the safety of knowing that you can do the practice. Because the first time you're like, I don't know how I'm going to be in this.
Yes.
And so I want to give that permission slip, like that's okay.
Mm.
That makes you human
Mm.
and a discerning, sensing human, which is a great thing to be. So I'd say, I mean, think about what's your avenue of the things that you generally look for. Is it the interest or the philosophy of a class? Is it the teacher themselves? For me, it's the teacher. That's usually the thing, and I'm very picky. Or maybe you're a spatial person and you really, I like this studio, I want to practice here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But ask yourself that question. What are the things as you make decisions for your well-being, for your practices, what are the things that make you feel open, that make you feel interested and curious? And explore down that lane and be willing to come back to it or try a couple of different ones or try a few different times. Again, every practice is different. Any practice can be like the first time because no practice is going to be the same, but the first time is still always the first time. And if you had a difficult first time, your client that we have been speaking around, maybe grant yourself to be extra mindful if you're still curious. Sense into what it is that would make you feel safe in another practice. And you, again, as with your body, as with your breath, you're the holder of it. I think for me that's important to remember. Nobody's forcing you to the mat. Exactly. Nobody's forcing you to breathe. And what I can say, and I'm sure you have similar sensations also witnessing people, is that we know what we're doing. Yeah. We have so much wisdom. It's the thing that humbles me the most about this work is seeing people and just, you know what you're doing. You have the wisdom. I hold space. I hold space. You have wisdom that you need in your life. Yeah.
It's not just you giving, I don't know, the magic.
No.
No, it's just you are not just the space holder, but let's say that you are the activator, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like you remind them, oh, this is in yourself. This is within you. You got this.
Yeah, but in the end, like, I think that's a really important thing to remember with any practice like this.
Beautiful.
You have it. Nobody else's view or opinion or anything matters.
No, and it's so empowering and so freeing.
And I think also, again, I'm allergic to this, people bestowing their solutions onto me. So I always say, if people think that you should do things in a very certain and specific way, use your discernment. You should feel more connected to yourself after practices.
That's a little hint of, do you feel more connected or do you feel more disconnected, uncertain, or?
Yeah, and we can feel connected and provoked and connected in other things. So it's not I've come out of all kinds of sessions feeling like, and really connected to myself. So I think for me, it's like curiosity is also being an acceptance of nuance. It's not like we come out and then there's only one emotion and there's nuance. If you're feeling more nuance, that's a good thing. We want nuance.
I say let's leave it at that. It's like a beautiful way of kind of summing up all our conversation. Nuances. We want to see nuances.
Yes.
Shani, would you like to share with us how can people connect with you?
Yes. Where am I now?
Where are you?
Where am I? I always find the digital space wildly confusing. You can find me on Instagram with my name, Shani Persson. You can find me on Substack, where my Substack is called Learning from Trees. That's where you have me, and there you can find links to all kinds of other things.
Can you take just a few seconds to talk about Learning from Trees?
Yes. It's also a podcast that will be released soon.
There you go. Juicy.
Learning from Trees sprung for me from a place of seeing that we consume knowledge, but we don't practice knowledge so much. We collect facts, but we don't let it change us. And so Learning from Trees is the platform where I share writing and reflections, but it's also where I go into conversations with people on the podcast to just listen to perspectives on how we actually interact with life and grow through that. Can be through practices, but can also be through the way that we apply ourselves to anything that arises in life. And how that can be our school, and how we can talk to trees too if we want. Can teach us a lot of things.
Exactly, how they can talk to us too.
They can talk to us too. I think we're a society very caught up in consuming in different ways. And I don't always think our development is about consuming. I think it's more about participating and interacting. And also our creativity is about that. It's about taking things that happen to us and kind of letting them churn and alchemizing and figuring out what are we transforming this into. And while a lot of things will show that as a very linear, easy process, I don't think it is. I think there can be so much more joy and curiosity and desire and other things applied to it. So yeah, that's going to come probably after the holidays. Yeah, that's just where I explore all kinds of things. You're welcome to join the conversation.
When you first told me about Learning from Trees, I thought, wow, this is such a simple title, but it's so you. Oh my God, I love this. There is so much food for thought. So just in the title, I'm happy with the content. Just already add the title. Because I said that the trees are talking to us, but they do talk to us.
Yeah.
All the time. But are we listening? Are we willing to get there and learn their language? Right? So I think circling back.
We're circling back. We need to expand the languages that we are speaking. And I mean, personally, I walk in the cemetery several times a week. And some of the things when I'm stressed out is one of the biggest reminders for me is walking around looking at the trees. There's always something to be reminded of, to look at nature, especially I think when we're always rushing. Right? And there are these trees and they've been there for 200 years. They're not rushing anywhere, and yet they're there. They're growing and they're blooming. And
they are.
Yeah.
They are.
They are. They're doing their thing. And yeah, so for me, it's a door into that curiosity of how we get to do more of that.
This, as always, after our conversations, I'm just in awe of you and your work and your ability to really convey sensations, into words. So thank you so much for doing that and bringing so much food for thought, inspiration, and information.
Thank you
so much. No. I wish you a beautiful, beautiful day, Shani. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Synergy Podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something within you, a new way of thinking, feeling, or moving. If you love this episode, let me know. Share it, leave a review, or connect with me on Instagram @Mielistri. And to go deeper, check out my yoga offerings, come to a yoga class at the studio, and check out my handmade natural body products at mielestrega.com. Remember, your body is yours, your pleasure is yours, and living pain-free is possible. Until next time, move with ease and live with joy.